Victor Harrington stood atop Chicago, his world a glittering fortress of glass and steel. From the 80th floor of Harrington Tower, the city sprawled beneath him, a chessboard of opportunities where he moved pieces with ruthless precision. His wealth was a currency few could fathom, a force that bent markets and men alike. Yet, as he gazed at the twinkling skyline, his reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a man hollowed out by loss. His bespoke suit, tailored to perfection, felt like armor against a world he no longer trusted. His heart, once vibrant, was now a vault sealed shut by grief. 6 years ago, Isabella, his wife, had distanced. Her laughter had painted his monochrome life with color, her wisdom reminding him that true wealth lay in moments shared, not dollars amassed. She saw their son Ethan as their masterpiece, born just 2 years before the car accident that stole her away. Ethan, now 8, was a paradox of brilliance and fragility. Cerebral palsy gripped his body, rendering his movements erratic, his speech silent. His mind, sharp as a blade, was trapped in a vessel that defied his will. Victor watched him daily, a boy whose dark eyes flickered with humor at a cartoon stumble or softened to the strains of Isabella's favorite Beethoven sonata, yet whose frustration erupted in guttural cries that pierced Victor's soul. He had spared no expense. The east wing of the penthouse was a medical marvel disguised as a child's haven. Soft lights bathed cartoon murals, masking the sterile precision of state-of-the-art equipment. Pediatric neurologists, flown in from across the globe, mapped Ethan's brain with clinical detachment. Physical therapists, the best money could buy, worked his limbs with mechanical efficiency. A team of nurses rotated in shifts, their care impeccable but devoid of warmth. Ethan's world was a cocoon of expertise, yet it echoed silently. His eye-gaze computer, a marvel of technology, let him type words, but more often, rage won, shattering the quiet with cries of despair. These meltdowns were worsening, each a reminder of Victor's failure to reach his son. Victor's days were split between the relentless pursuit of wealth in boardrooms, where his decisions shaped fortunes, and the helpless vortex of fatherhood. He was a titan. In the latter, he was a man drowning in inadequacy. He had built an empire to shield Ethan, but it was a gilded cage, locking them inside. The professionals saw Ethan as a case, a puzzle of symptoms to manage. They missed the boy who giggled at a squirrel's antics on a video screen and clung to the scent of lavender that Isabella once loved. Victor saw it all, and it was tearing him apart. Dr. Harlan Brooks sat across from Victor in his sprawling office on a gray Tuesday, the city a muted backdrop behind him. His kind face belied a somber tone. Ethan's meltdowns are his way of fighting an environment he can't control, he said, adjusting his glasses. He's lashing out, Victor. He needs more than routine. Have you considered taking him somewhere ordinary? A park? A diner? The word ordinary stung like a foreign language. Ethan's world was sterile, predictable, safe. The outside was chaos, a sensory minefield of noise and stares. Victor's jaw tightened. He can't handle that, he said, his voice low. Harlan leaned forward. Or we've underestimated him. He needs the proper stimulation, with you there to make him feel safe. The idea was a blade to Victor's chest. Logistics were no issue. He had teams for that. But exposure, Ethan's fragility, laid bare before strangers' judgment, was a nightmare. Yet the memory of Ethan's face that morning, red and contorted in a silent scream, was worse. Victor's wealth could buy anything, but not peace for his son. He had to try. The decision settled like a stone in his gut, a spark of resolve igniting against his fear. Tomorrow he would take Ethan to a diner, a place as alien to their world as the moon, and face whatever chaos awaited. Victor Harrington stood motionless in his penthouse study, the city's glow a distant hum beyond the window. The room was a shrine to Isabella, his late wife, her presence woven into every detail. The framed photo of her laughing on a Greek beach, the faint lavender scent lingering in the air, the Beethoven sonata she loved playing softly from a hidden speaker. 6 years ago, a car accident had ripped her from his life, leaving a wound that wealth could not heal. She had been his compass, guiding him to see beyond balance sheets to the heart of what mattered. Their son, Ethan, born 2 years before her death, was her greatest gift, a testament to their love.
But cerebral palsy had cast a shadow over his young life, chaining his brilliant mind to a body that rebelled with every step. A cruel paradox. His eyes sparkled with wit, catching the slapstick of a cartoon or the rhythm of a melody. Yet his limbs jerked uncontrollably, and his voice remained locked inside. Victor had watched him struggle, communicating through an eye-gaze computer that translated blinks into words. But frustration often overpowered technology, erupting in cries that echoed through the penthouse's sterile halls. Each scream was a dagger, reminding Victor of his failure to bridge the gap between them. Isabella knew how her touch calmed Ethan's storms with ease. She'd cradle him, humming tunes from her childhood, and his tense body would soften. Victor felt like a man navigating a storm without a map, without her. The East Wing, Ethan's domain, was a fortress of medical precision. They mapped neural pathways, therapists stretched rigid muscles, and nurses monitored every breath. Yet their expertise lacked soul. They treated Ethan as a case, not a boy who laughed at squirrels or calmed to Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Victor saw the disconnect and it gnawed at him. He'd built an empire to protect his son, but it was a hollow shield, unable to quiet the cries that grew louder each day. The professionals' reports were clinical, their solutions mechanical, and Victor's wealth felt like a mockery in the face of Ethan's pain. Harlan Brooks' words lingered like a challenge. Ethan's meltdowns are his way of fighting against a world he can't control, he'd said, his voice steady but piercing. He needs more than this sterile bubble. Take him somewhere real, Victor. A diner, a park. Let him feel life with you there to anchor him. The suggestion was absurd. Ethan's world was safe, controlled, and predictable. The outside was a chaos of noise, crowds, and judgment. Victor's mind recoiled at the thought of Ethan's fragility exposed, of strangers' stares or cruel whispers. He'd spent years shielding his son from that. A diner? The word felt foreign, conjuring images of clattering plates and unfamiliar faces. Ethan can't handle it, Victor had protested, his voice tight. Harlan's gaze was unwavering. Or maybe you are the one who can't. He needs to feel the world's messiness, not hide from it. A spark in the dark, terrifying yet undeniable. Victor's memories of Isabella flooded back. Her insistence on taking Ethan to the park despite his condition. Her laughter as she pushed his stroller through the grass, uncaring of onlookers. She'd believed Ethan could handle more than the world assumed. Was Harlan right? Was Victor underestimating his son, cocooning him in fear rather than trust? The image of Ethan's face that morning, twisted in a silent scream, was a heavier weight than any boardroom defeat. Victor's empire could buy anything except the peace Isabella once gave. He stood, fists clenched, the city's lights blurring in his vision. Tomorrow he'd take Ethan to a diner called Rusty Fork, a place as far from their world as he could imagine. It was a gamble, a step into the unknown, and the fear of failure churned in his gut. But for Ethan, he'd face it, carrying Isabella's memory as his only guide. Victor Harrington's decision to step beyond the sterile safety of Harrington Tower felt like a plunge into uncharted waters. The Rusty Fork Diner, nestled in a greedy Chicago neighborhood, was a world apart from his polished empire. Its faded sign and peeling paint stood in stark contrast to the gleaming glass of his penthouse.
Victor, dressed in a plain polo and slacks chosen by his head of security, Marcus, felt exposed, as if the simplicity of his attire betrayed his carefully curated armor. Beside him, Ethan sat in a customized wheelchair, its tray gleaming under the morning sun. Daniel, the specially trained nurse, walked close, ready to manage Ethan's needs. Marcus trailed behind, a silent sentinel scanning the street. Victor's heart pounded, each step a battle against the fear of exposing his son's fragility. The diner's door creaked as they entered, releasing a wave of fried bacon and stale coffee. The air was thick, alive with the clatter of plates and the hum of working-class chatter. Vinyl booths, cracked and faded, lined the walls, and fluorescent lights cast a harsh glow. Victor felt the weight of eyes on them, a billionaire out of place in this unpolished world. Ethan's dark eyes widened, taking in the chaos with curiosity and caution. For a moment, Victor saw a spark in his son, a flicker of fascination as Ethan watched the cook flip pancakes on a sizzling griddle. His lips twitched, almost forming a smile. Victor's chest loosened, a fragile hope stirring. Maybe Dr. Harlan was right. Ethan could handle this. They settled into a booth, Daniel adjusting Ethan's tray with practiced ease. Victor sat stiffly, his senses assaulted by the diner's raw energy. The noise was a cacophony compared to the monastic quiet of their home. Ethan's gaze darted from the cook to a waitress balancing trays, his head tilting with interest. Victor allowed himself a breath, daring to believe this could work. The moment was shattered with a crash. A waitress stumbled, her tray of dishes hitting the floor like a gunshot. The diner froze, and Ethan's body went rigid. His head snapped back, a low moan escaping his lips. His arms, resting on the tray, began to jerk, the movements sharp and uncontrolled. The moan escalated into a high-pitched cry, raw with distress. Heads turned, conversations died. Victor felt the stares, a mix of annoyance, pity, and something uglier. "Can't you keep that kid quiet?" a grizzled man muttered from a nearby table, his voice cutting through the silence. Victor's face burned, shame and fury warring within him. He wanted to shout, to tell them Ethan was his son, brilliant and perfect despite his broken body. But the words lodged in his throat, choked by the weight of public judgment. Daniel shifted into clinical mode, his voice calm but distant. "It's okay, Ethan. Take deep breaths. Let's use your tools." He guided Ethan's hand toward a stress ball, but Ethan thrashed, knocking it to the floor. The cries grew louder, each one a blade to Victor's heart. The diner's chaos resumed, but the stares lingered, a spotlight Victor couldn't escape. He felt the walls closing in, the hope of moments ago crumbling. This was a mistake. The outside world was too much, too cruel for Ethan. Victor's hands clenched, his mind screaming to flee, to retreat to the safety of their fortress. He signaled Daniel with a sharp nod, a silent command to get Ethan out. As Daniel unlatched the wheelchair, Victor's gaze fell to the floor, unable to meet the eyes around him. His wealth, his power meant nothing here. He was just a father, failing his son in front of strangers. The weight of that failure pressed down, heavier than any deal he'd ever lost. Yet, as they prepared to leave, a faint voice cut through the din, soft but clear, directed not at him, but at Ethan. It said, "Excuse me, sir." And Victor looked up, his world on the brink of change. Sophia Reyes stood by Victor Harrington's booth, her faded polyester uniform clinging to her weary frame.
Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her worn shoes betrayed the endless hours she spent on her feet at the Rusty Fork Diner. A daughter of Mexican immigrants, Sofia carried the weight of her family's values: compassion, resilience, and an unspoken duty to care for those in need. Her childhood was filled with her grandmother's lullabies, soft melodies that soothed her through storms, a tradition she now drew upon instinctively. As Ethan's cries pierced the diner's chaos, she saw not a disruption, but a boy in distress, his eyes wide with fear, mirroring the vulnerability she'd seen in her own mother's Alzheimer's adult gaze. Without hesitation, she stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly, her eyes fixed on Ethan, not Victor. The billionaire's cold stare barely registered. Her focus was the boy in the wheelchair, his body rigid, arms jerking in spasms. "Hey there, little one," she murmured, kneeling to meet Ethan's tear-filled eyes. That loud noise was scary. It startled me too. Her voice was a gentle anchor, laced with the cadence of her grandmother's songs.
The diner's clamor faded as she spoke, her words a lifeline to Ethan's overwhelmed senses. "It's okay to be scared," she continued, "but you're safe now. These folks are just eating their burgers. That crash is gone." Ethan's thrashing paused, his gaze locking onto hers, a flicker of recognition cutting through his panic. Victor watched, stunned, as Sofia glanced at him. "Does he like to be held?" she asked, her tone seeking genuine permission. Victor, caught off guard, fumbled for words. The nurses rarely held Ethan except for transfers. It wasn't protocol. When had he last held his son? Not to move him, but to comfort him. The memory was a distant ache. "Sometimes," he managed, his voice tight. "It's tricky." Sofia nodded, undeterred. "May I?" Victor gave a curt nod, his heart a knot of doubt and hope. With practiced ease, Sofia slid her arms under Ethan's back and knees, mindful of his stiff limbs. She gently returned Ethan to his chair, his eyes now calm, fixed on her with a clarity Victor hadn't seen in years. Ethan's shaky hand reached up, brushing her cheek with effort. Sofia held it briefly, her smile widening. "Take it easy, sweet boy," she said softly. She stood, her face slipping back into a professional mask. "Can I get you anything else or just a check?" Victor, speechless, pulled several $100 bills from his wallet, dropping them on the table. He nodded to Daniel to move Ethan, then stood, his mind reeling. As they left, Marcus trailing behind, Victor glanced back through the diner's grimy window. Sofia cleared the table, unaware of the money, her face etched with wary efficiency. In 3 minutes, she'd shown Victor a truth his wealth couldn't touch, a spark of kindness that burned brighter than his empire, igniting a resolve to know her name. Sofia Reyes trudged up the creaking stairs to her cramped studio apartment, the dim flicker of a bare bulb casting shadows on the peeling walls. The air was stale, heavy with the weight of a life stretched thin. Her polyester uniform, still damp from a long shift at the Rusty Fork Diner, clung to her skin, and her worn shoes ached against her swollen feet. A daughter of Mexican immigrants, Sofia carried the legacy of her family's resilience, their belief that love and sacrifice could mend any fracture. Her childhood in a tight-knit Chicago barrio was filled with her abuela's stories of hope, her hands weaving comfort through every lullaby. Now, those same instincts had guided her to calm Ethan, a boy whose fear mirrored the helplessness she saw daily in her mother, Anna, lost to Alzheimer's. The apartment was a shrine to survival. A single photo of Anna, smiling before the disease stole her, sat on a chipped table beside a stack of unpaid bills. Sofia sank onto a threadbare couch, counting her tips under the bulb's weak glow. The total was meager, barely enough for a bus pass and a few groceries. Victor's nearly $500 lay among the crumpled bills, a large sum that felt like a mistake.
Guilt gnawed at her. It was more than she earned in weeks. Yet the memory of Ethan's tear-filled eyes and Victor's haunted stare made her hesitate to touch it. She pushed the money aside, her mind drifting to her mother's nursing home, where late fees loomed like a guillotine. Sophia's dreams had once been bold. She'd enrolled in a community college nursing program, driven to heal and honor her family's care tradition. But Anna's diagnosis had shattered those plans. The disease was relentless, stripping her mother's memories and leaving Sophia to juggle 2 jobs: days at the diner, nights cleaning offices. Sleep was a stolen luxury, and hope felt like a currency she couldn't afford. Her student loans, now in default, were a constant weight, and the eviction notice pinned to her fridge was a ticking clock. Yet, the image of Ethan, his small hand brushing her cheek, lingered, a quiet ache in her chest. She recognized his terror, the desperation she'd seen in children in her barrio, where kindness was often the only medicine. Her phone buzzed as she sorted the bills. An unfamiliar number flashed. She ignored it, assuming it was debt collectors, but the memory of Ethan's calm after her touch stirred something in her, a flicker of purpose she hadn't felt in years. She'd acted on instinct, drawing on her abuela's lessons. When someone's hurting, you hold them, sing, and stay. It wasn't training, it was heart. The night deepened, and Sophia lay awake, the city's hum a faint echo through her thin walls. She wondered about Victor, the silent man in the polo, and his wealth was evident even in his attempt at simplicity. Why had he looked so broken? The next evening, after another grueling shift, Sophia stepped out of the Rusty Fork into the cool Chicago air. A sleek black car, its polished surface gleaming under streetlights, pulled beside her. Her heart lurched, instincts screaming danger. The window glided down, revealing a man in a sharp suit, his expression severe but polite. "Sophia Reyes," he said, his voice carrying authority. "I'm Marcus, head of staff for Victor Harrington. You served him and his son yesterday." The name clicked. Harrington Tower, the billionaire. The tip made sudden, terrifying sense. "Mr. Harrington wishes to speak with you," Marcus continued. "He has a proposition. Will you come?" Sophia's grip tightened on her backpack strap, every warning from her barrio upbringing flashing red. This was how trouble started. Strange cars, powerful men. But the eviction notice, Anna's fading smile, and the memory of Ethan's trust pressed against her fear. What did she have left to lose? "Okay," she whispered, her voice barely audible. As she stepped toward the car, her heart pounded with fear and a strange spark of possibility. A chance that this moment could change everything. Sophia Reyes stepped into the Rolls-Royce, the leather interior swallowing her in an otherworldly silence. The city's clamor faded as the car glided toward Harrington Tower, its sleek frame a stark contrast to the gritty streets of her barrio. Her heart raced, torn between fear and a flicker of hope. Marcus, the severe man in the suit, drove without speaking, his eyes fixed ahead. Sophia clutched her worn backpack, its frayed straps a reminder of her reality. A life of scraping by, late fees and fading dreams. The image of Ethan's trusting gaze and her mother's frail form in the nursing home anchored her decision. Whatever Victor Harrington wanted, she had little left to lose. The private elevator ascended with a stomach-lurching speed, opening into the penthouse's vast expanse. The space was cold and minimalist, a museum of wealth with floor-to-ceiling windows framing Chicago's glittering skyline. Victor stood by one, his tailored suit sharp against the city's glow, his presence commanding yet shadowed by grief. Ethan sat in his wheelchair nearby, a nurse in a starched uniform at his side, her eyes flicking to Sophia with disdain. But Ethan's face lit up, a soft sound of joy escaping as he rocked slightly, his dark eyes fixed on her. Victor's expression softened briefly, a crack in his stoic facade before he turned to Sophia. "Miss Reyes," he said, his voice formal but strained. Thank you for coming. Sophia nodded, her throat tight, as she knelt beside Ethan. Hello, sweet boy, she said, her smile breaking through her nerves. It's good to see you. Ethan's hand twitched, a happy vocalization bubbling up, his gaze locked on her with recognition. Victor stepped forward, his voice cutting through the moment. I'll be direct. I've spent millions on Ethan's care, the best specialists in the world. Yet in minutes, you did what they couldn't. You calmed him in a crisis. He gestured to the opulent room, its sterile beauty a hollow shell. I can give him everything but the connection. You have that. Sadeward Sophia's cheeks flushed, her mind reeling. I didn't do anything special, she stammered. I just cared. Victor's eyes narrowed, not with doubt, but with conviction. Exactly. It wasn't from a textbook. It was human. I want to hire you, Miss Reyes, as Ethan's companion, not a nurse, not a therapist, just you, being with him, as you were in that diner. He named a salary so vast it dwarfed her decade of earnings. Her breath caught, debts paid, her mother in a better facility, a chance to breathe. But the offer felt like a trap, too good to be real. A woman entered, her stilettos clicking like a warning. Impeccably dressed, she radiated authority, her face a mask of sculpted disdain. Victor, darling, she purred, her voice laced with venom. Marcus said you brought the waitress here? Surely you're not serious. Victor's jaw tightened. Vivian, this is Sophia Reyes. Miss Reyes, this is Vivian Thornton, my late wife's sister. Vivian's eyes raked over Sophia, her smile sharp. A pleasure, she said, her tone anything but. She leaned toward Victor, her whisper loud enough to sting. She's a nobody, from a greasy diner. You know nothing about her. A gold digger, likely. You can't trust her with Ethan. The insult burned, but Sophia held her composure, used to being underestimated. Enough, Vivian, Victor said, his voice low and dangerous. This is my decision. Vivian sighed theatrically, turning to Ethan. Come, sweet boy, let's avoid this nonsense. She moved to push his wheelchair, but Ethan whined, his eyes fixed on Sophia, a small act of defiance. Victor's resolve hardened. The offer stands, Miss Reyes. A suite here, all expenses covered. Your job is simple. Be with Ethan, talk, and read to him. Sophia's mind spun, Vivian's glare a looming threat, but Anna's fading smile and Ethan's trust tipped the scales. I have one condition, she said, finding her voice. My mother is in a home in Elmwood Park. I need to see her weekly. Victor nodded. Done. A car and driver will be yours. Sophia Reyes stepped into her new life at Harrington Tower, her worn backpack a relic amidst the opulence of her 3-room suite. The view from her window, a dizzying panorama of Chicago's skyline, felt like a dream she didn't trust. Now filled with clothes curated by a personal shopper, her closet seemed to belong to someone else. Yet these luxuries were mere background noise. Her world narrowed to Ethan, the boy whose trust she'd earned in a fleeting moment at the Rusty Fork. Drawing on her Mexican heritage, where family meant everything, Sophia approached her role with a simple credo. Treat Ethan as a person, not a patient. Her days became a study in his subtle language, the twitches and sounds that spoke louder than his eye-gaze computer. Ethan's wing was a marvel of technology, with monitors and therapy tools disguised by colorful murals. Sophia learned the mechanics of his cerebral palsy, working with Dr. Harlan to understand how sensory input could ease his muscle spasms. She studied his eye-gaze device, decoding the blinks that formed words, but she went further, noticing how his shoulders relaxed to the scent of rain or how his eyes lit up at the texture of velvet. She introduced him to David Bowie's music, the pulsing beats of Space Oddity sparking a rare chuckle, a dry, breathy sound that warmed her heart. Reading The Hobbit, she animated Bilbo's adventures with dramatic voices, watching Ethan's face glow with delight at each twist. And Victor observed from a distance, his presence a quiet shadow in the penthouse. He saw Ethan's meltdowns lessen, replaced by a new alertness. Sophia's approach was unorthodox. No charts, protocols, just instinct. She took Ethan to the penthouse's indoor garden, a lush oasis of moss and blossoms, letting him touch soft petals and breathe humid air. His fingers, usually clenched, opened to explore, his body swaying to the rhythm of her hummed lullabies. Victor's chest tightened at the sight, a mix of awe and guilt. He'd hired the best, yet this woman, with no degree, had unlocked something in his son he thought lost. Vivian Thornton's presence was a constant thorn. Her stilettos announced her arrival, each visit laced with condescension. "Still here, Miss Reyes," she'd say, her smile sharp as glass. "Enjoying the view? I hope you're not too comfortable." Her words dripped with suspicion, planting doubt in Victor's mind. Sophia felt the sting but pressed on, her focus on Ethan.
Vivian's barbs grew sharper, aimed at undermining her. "I saw her on her phone, Victor," she whispered one evening, her tone conspiratorial. "Who is she texting? You should have Marcus recheck her background. People like her can be cunning." Victor's trust wavered, a flicker of his old cynicism resurfacing. He asked Marcus to verify Sophia's actions discreetly, a request that left a bitter taste. Marcus confirmed she'd only texted her mother's nursing home, but the doubt lingered, a crack in the fragile bond forming. Sophia sensed it, her heart heavy with the weight of being judged. Yet Ethan's progress fueled her resolve. One afternoon, she caught him typing on his device, the words "Sophia Happy" glowing on the screen. Her throat tightened. This boy, trapped in his body, saw her in a way no one else did. Resisted the penthouse. Once a cold fortress began to shift. As she read of Bilbo strolls, Sophia's laughter echoed through its halls. Ethan's chuckles joined her, a sound Victor hadn't heard in years. He lingered longer during their sessions, drawn by the warmth he'd forgotten. But Vivian's shadow loomed, her resentment rooted in a past where Isabella's marriage had eclipsed her ambitions. She'd been the overlooked sister, denied a share of the Harrington legacy. Now, Sophia's presence threatened her influence over Ethan, the heir she claimed as her own. Each smile Ethan gave Sophia was slight, and each moment Victor spent with them was a theft. As Sophia tucked Ethan in one night, Vivian watched from the doorway, her eyes narrowing, a plan forming in the dark corners of her mind. Sophia Reyes knelt beside Ethan in the penthouse's indoor garden, the air heavy with the scent of jasmine and damp moss. Her fingers guided his to touch a soft fern, his usually tense hand relaxing under her gentle encouragement. Over weeks, she'd woven herself into Ethan's world, her Mexican heritage shaping her approach. Care was not just duty but connection, a lesson from her abuela's warm embrace. She'd mastered the nuances of his cerebral palsy, learning from Dr. Harlan how sensory therapy, like the feel of velvet or the rhythm of music, could ease his spasticity. David Bowie's Heroes pulsed through headphones she'd placed on Ethan, his body swaying slightly, a dry chuckle escaping as she mimicked the song's dramatic flair. Each smile, each typed word on his eye-gaze device, Sophia Fun, Ethan Happy, was a victory, a bridge to the boy within. Greedy Victor Harrington watched from the garden's edge, his tailored suit out of place among the greenery. Ethan's progress was undeniable. Fewer meltdowns, more moments of quiet focus. Sophia's methods were unorthodox, rooted in instinct rather than protocol. She read The Hobbit with theatrical voices, lighting Ethan's eyes at Bilbo's cunning. She brought rain-scented candles, knowing they calmed him, a detail no specialist had noted. Victor's heart stirred, a mix of awe and guilt. He'd spent millions on experts who treated Ethan as a condition,
Yet Sophia, with no credentials, saw his son's soul. Her laughter, echoing through the penthouse, was a sound he'd forgotten, one that once filled these halls when Isabella was alive. Egan joined in their sessions, lingering awkwardly, then sitting closer. He watched Sophia guide Ethan's stiff fingers to trace shapes on a tablet, her patience endless. One evening, he sat on the floor beside them as she read, feeling like a stranger in his own home. Sophia handed him the book, her eyes encouraging. "Try it," she said softly. He stumbled through a passage, his voice stiff, but Ethan's chuckle emboldened him. Victor felt like a father, not just a provider, for the first time in years.
The warmth of those moments cracked the walls he'd built. But doubt lingered, fed by Vivian Thornton's venom. Vivian's presence was a growing shadow. Her visits were unannounced, her stilettos a sharp warning. She watched Sophia with a predator's gaze, her resentment rooted in a lifetime of being overshadowed by Isabella, whose marriage to Victor had left Vivian on the fringes of the Harrington fortune. Now, Sophia's bond with Ethan threatened her claim as his godmother, his protector. She cornered Victor one afternoon as Sophia helped Ethan with sensory stretches, exercises Dr. Harlan's team had approved. "You're letting her do that?" Vivian gasped, her voice sharp. "She's no therapist. She could hurt him, Victor. This is what I warned you about. She's a liability." Sophia calmly explained the exercises, her voice steady despite Vivian's glare. She said they're from Dr. Harlan's protocol, but Vivian's accusation hung in the air. Victor, his cynicism stirred, later asked Marcus to verify her claim. Marcus confirmed the exercises were correct, but the incident left a sting. Sophia felt the weight of Victor's doubt, her heart sinking under the scrutiny she'd faced all her life as an outsider. Yet Ethan's trust kept her grounded. One morning, as she played a mariachi tune from childhood, Ethan typed Sophia's music well, his eyes bright with joy. She smiled, but Vivian's words echoed, a reminder of her fragile trust. Endhouse was changing, its cold silence giving way to Ethan's laughter and Sophia's stories. Victor was drawn to their sessions, asking Sophia about Ethan's day. Her answers were vivid and alive with details. "He loves it when Bilbo tricks the trolls. I think he sees himself in him, small but clever." Victor nodded, a warmth spreading that he hadn't felt since Isabella. But Vivian's shadow grew darker, her resentment a coiled snake. As Sophia tugged Ethan in, reading of hobbits and dragons, Vivian lingered in the doorway, her eyes cold. Sophia's presence was unraveling her plans, and she knew she had to act before Ethan's love for this outsider stole her place forever. Vivian Thornton stood in the dim glow of her downtown apartment, her reflection in a gilded mirror revealing a woman sculpted by years of resentment. As Isabella's older sister, she'd always been the shadow to her siblings' light, overlooked when Isabella married Victor Harrington and claimed the empire Vivian believed she deserved. After Isabella's death, Vivian had positioned herself as Ethan's godmother, the keeper of the Harrington legacy, expecting to wield influence over the boy and the fortune tied to him. But Sophia Rez, the unassuming waitress from the Rusty Fork, had disrupted her plans. Ethan's laughter, his typed words of affection for Sophia, were a theft of Vivian's rightful place. Her manicured fingers tightened around a glass of wine, her mind weaving a plan to reclaim control. Underestimated had deep roots. Growing up, Isabella's charm had eclipsed her, drawing their parents' praise and later, Victor's love. When Isabella dies, Vivian sees her chance to step into the void, guide Ethan, and secure a stake in Harrington's wealth. She'd spent years cultivating her role, visiting the penthouse, offering advice Victor ignored. Sophia's arrival was an insult, her effortless bond with Ethan a direct challenge. Vivian's visits grew frequent, her eyes tracking Sophia's every move.
She noted the way Ethan's face lit up at Sophia's voice, the way Victor lingered during their sessions, his guarded demeanor softening. It was intolerable. Late one night, Vivian slipped into the penthouse's study, a room sacred to Victor's memories of Isabella. A sapphire necklace, a first anniversary gift to his wife, lay locked in a safe with its sentimental and immense value.
Vivian had a keycard, granted years ago for emergencies, a privilege she'd never used until now. Her heart raced as she glanced at the hallway, the silence broken only by the hum of the city below. She punched in the code, her fingers trembling, and opened the safe. The necklace glittered under the study's soft light, a perfect tool for her scheme. She slipped it into her pocket, her plan crystallizing. Frame Sophia, expose her as a thief, and restore her influence. At 3 a.m., Vivian moved silently through the penthouse's residential wing. A master housekeeping card, pilfered from a staff room, granted her access to Sophia's suite. She paused outside the door, her breath shallow, the weight of her betrayal pressing against her chest. Inside, the room was dark, Sophia's worn backpack tucked in a closet corner, untouched since her arrival. Vivian slid the necklace into a side pocket, ensuring it was hidden but findable. She left as swiftly as she'd entered, her stilettos muted on the carpet. The security cameras, which she knew recorded the hallways, were a risk, but she banked on Victor's trust in her as family to shield her from suspicion. Back in her apartment, Vivian rehearsed her performance. She'd claimed she'd entered the study for a photo of Isabella, noticing the safe ajar. The necklace's absence would point to Sophia, the outsider with access, and a desperate background. Vivian's lips curled. She'd seen Sophia's threadbare life, her struggle to care for her mother. Who wouldn't believe a poor server would steal? The plan was flawless, exploiting Victor's latent cynicism, honed by years of boardroom betrayals. She sipped her wine, imagining Sophia's disgrace. Ethan returned to her care, and Victor's gratitude secured her place. Yet, a flicker of unease stirred. Ethan's devotion to Sophia was absolute, his progress undeniable. Vivian pushed the thought aside, her resentment burning brighter. She'd lost too much to Isabella. Her parents' favor, her chance at wealth. Ethan was her last claim, and Sophia was a thief of a different kind, stealing the boy's affection and Victor's trust. As dawn broke, Vivian prepared to visit the penthouse, ready to plant a seed of doubt. She'd play the grieving sister, the concerned aunt, and watch Sophia fall. The necklace, a symbol of Isabella's love, would be the weapon to destroy her rival, and Vivian would ensure no one saw the truth behind her calculated smile. Apologized Thornton's plan unfolded in the penthouse's sterile silence with chilling precision. She entered Victor Harrington's study, her face a mask of feigned distress. "Victor, I was looking for a photo of Isabella," she said, her voice trembling just enough. The safe was ajar. His blood ran cold. The sapphire necklace, a cherished relic of his late wife, was gone. Vivian's eyes flicked to Sophia Reyes, who read to Ethan in the garden. "It's her, Victor," she whispered. Who else could it be? She's been here, watching, waiting. Victor's mind churned, his years of ballroom cynicism roaring to life. Sophia's impoverished background and her access to the penthouse fit too neatly. Yet her gentle touch with Ethan, her patience, clashed with the accusation. Victor's voice was tight. "That's a serious claim, Vivian. Prove it." Her nod was solemn, but her eyes gleamed with triumph. He summoned Marcus, his head of security. "Search Miss Reyes' suite. Now." Marcus hesitated, his face uneasy. "Sir, are you sure?" "Do it," Victor snapped, his heart a battlefield of doubt and betrayal. Sophia, unaware,
was helping Ethan trace shapes on a tablet, her laughter soft as he typed Sophia Good. The head housekeeper, Elena, alerted her to the search, her kind eyes filled with worry. Sophia rushed to her suite, finding Marcus and 2 guards rifling through her belongings. Her heart pounded. "What's happening?" she asked, her voice shaking.
Marcus avoided her gaze. Mr. Harrington's orders. They tore through drawers, closets, and then her old backpack, untouched, in a corner. A guard pulled out the sapphire necklace, its gems glittering under the lights. Sophia's breath caught, her mind reeling. "I've never seen that before," she stammered. "I swear I didn't take it." Her words sounded hollow, the plea of the guilty. Marcus's face was grim as he led her to the living room, where Victor waited, the necklace in his hand. Vivian stood beside him, her expression a veneer of sorrow masking victory. Ethan, in his wheelchair nearby, sensed the tension, his eyes wide with confusion. "So this is who you are," Victor said, his voice cold as stone. "All of it. The kindness, the care, a lie to steal this." Sophia's tears spilled over. "No, Victor, I swear I didn't. Please, you know me. You've seen me with Ethan. He knows it's real." Ethan's body tensed, a low whine escaping as he typed frantically on his device. "Sophia. No, Sophia's home." The words glowed, a desperate plea. But Victor's gaze was unyielding, the necklace a damning weight in his hand. "Believe you?" he scoffed, his voice bitter. "You were my one mistake, trusting someone like you." Vivian's voice was smooth, cutting. "She's a thief, Victor. Call the police. Let them handle her." Sophia's knees buckled, her world collapsing. "No!" she cried, her eyes pleading with Victor. "Look at Ethan. You know what we have." Ethan's whines grew louder, his hands jerking as he typed Sophia repeatedly. Victor glanced at his son, a flicker of doubt piercing his resolve, but the evidence was ironclad. "Pack your things," he said, his tone final. "Marcus will escort you out. You have 1 hour. Be grateful I'm not pressing charges." He turned away, his back a wall of rejection. Sophia stood frozen, the penthouse's opulence mocking her ruin. She'd been so close to a new life, saving her mother and giving Ethan the love he craved. Now it was ashes. As she stumbled toward her suite, Vivian's smirk burned into her. Ethan's cries followed, each one a knife to her heart. She caught his gaze, his tear-filled eyes mirroring the terror she'd seen in the diner. This time she was torn away, branded a criminal by a lie she couldn't fight. She packed her few belongings in her room, the designer clothes left behind, a dream shattered. Elena slipped in, pressing a small roll of cash into her hand. "I don't believe it, mija," she whispered. "That woman's a snake." Sophia nodded, her throat too tight to speak, her mind fixed on Ethan's desperate words, a final plea she couldn't answer. Tangle Harrington stood in the penthouse's living room, the sapphire necklace cold in his hand, Ethan's cries echoing in the silence. The word Sophia glowed on his son's eye-gaze device, a desperate mantra. Sophia, no. Sophia, home. Victor's heart churned. Something felt wrong, a fracture in the logic of betrayal. His business empire was built on reading people, spotting greed and deceit in boardroom glances. Sophia's devastation, her raw shock at the necklace, didn't align with a thief's cunning. Ethan's grief, his frantic typing, was too real for a child to fake. Victor's gaze shifted to Marcus, his head of security, standing by the door, his face troubled. "Where was the necklace found?" Victor asked, his voice low.
In her backpack, sir, Marcus replied. The old one in the closet. It hadn't been touched in weeks. Dusty. Victor's mind seized on the detail. Why hide a priceless jewel in a forgotten bag? Why not smuggle it out? He turned to the study security. Who has access? Marcus hesitated. Only you, sir, and family. The word hung heavy. Vivian Thornton, Isabella's sister, sat scrolling her phone, wearing a thin mask. Victor's eyes narrowed. You said you went to the study for a photo, Vivian. Which one? She looked up startled. Just one from Greece, to cheer Ethan. Her voice faltered.
Escort to his desk where a digital frame cycled through Isabella's images. Photos are digitized, Vivian. You know that. Why were you in my study? Her composure cracked, a flicker of panic in her eyes. I forgot. I was worried about safety. And she stammered. Victor's voice turned icy. Convenient. He turned to Marcus. Pull the security footage from the study hallway every second for the last 48 hours. Vivian protested, her voice shrill. You're interrogating me? Your family? Marcus interjected quietly. Sir, the system will be overwritten soon. We need to move. In the security room, the three watched the monitors. Hours of empty footage passed, Elena dusting briefly. Then, at 2:17 a.m., Vivian appeared, glancing nervously before using a keycard to enter the study. She stayed 10 minutes, exiting with a hurried look. You had a keycard? Victor asked, his voice deadly calm. Isabella gave it to me. For emergencies, Vivian mumbled, her face pale. At 2 a.m. After lying about a photo, Victor's gaze shifted to Marcus. Check Sophia's hallway. The footage at 3:05 a.m. showed Vivian slipping into Sophia's suite with a housekeeping card, emerging moments later, hands empty. She'd planted the necklace. The truth hit Victor like a physical blow. Vivian, his wife's sister, had orchestrated a betrayal, not Sophia. Why? He whispered, turning to her. Vivian's facade crumbled, tears spilling as she pointed at Ethan's monitor. Because of him. You pour everything into that broken boy, ignoring the legacy I was meant to protect. I was supposed to guide you and raise him. Then she came, that nobody, stealing my place. Her voice was venomous, raw with years of resentment. Victor's disgust was cold, absolute. He'd trusted her, blinded by grief, and cast out the one person who'd brought Ethan joy. Get out, he said, his voice ablaze. Out of my building, my life. My lawyers will handle you. If you come near us again, this footage will destroy you. Vivian flinched, her tears turning to sobs, but Victor felt nothing. He turned to Marcus. Find Sophia. Use every resource. Please bring her back. Now. Vivian stumbled out, her stilettos echoing her defeat. Victor returned to Ethan, who sat listlessly, his screen still flashing Sophia. He knelt, his voice breaking. I'm sorry, son. I failed you. The penthouse was silent, save for Ethan's soft whimpers, a void left by Sophia's absence. Victor's wealth had built a fortress, but his blindness had torn it down. Finding her was his only chance to mend the wreckage, to restore the light she'd brought to his son's world, and to face the truth he'd been too cynical to see. Victor Harrington drove through Chicago's quiet streets, the Rolls-Royce starkly contrasting with the humble parking lot of Bright Horizon Senior Care Facility in Elmwood Park. His hands gripped the wheel, the weight of his failure heavy. Sophia's absence had left Ethan listless, his son refusing to eat, his eye-gaze device silent. Victor's wealth, once his shield,
felt like a mockery. Inside, he found Sophia by her mother Anna's bedside, her hand clasping the frail woman's. Anna's eyes were vacant, lost to Alzheimer's, but Sophia hummed a soft lullaby, the same melody she'd used to calm Ethan. Her face, etched with exhaustion and red-rimmed from tears, held no surprise at Victor's arrival, only a bone-deep sadness. "Miss Reyes," he began, his voice cracking. "You shouldn't be here, Mr. Harrington," Sophia said quietly, her gaze fixed on Anna. Victor stepped closer, the sapphire necklace gone, replaced by Shane. "I know the truth," he said. "Vivian framed you. I saw the footage. She's gone, Sophia. I threw her out." A tear traced Sophia's cheek, her voice steady but raw. "And that fixes it? You saw a thief when you looked at me." Victor's chest tightened, her words cutting deeper than any boardroom loss. "I was wrong," he said, each word costing him. "My wealth, my past, it taught me to suspect everyone. I let Vivian's lies blind me because it was easier than trusting goodness. I'm so sorry." He knelt, his eyes level with hers. "I'm not asking forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm begging for Ethan. He's fading, Sophia. I can give him medicine, but you give him hope. Please, come back." The word home hung between them, heavy with meaning. Sophia looked at Anna, her mother's frail form a mirror of her sacrifices. She thought of Ethan's laugh and typed words, and Sophia was happy. He was innocent, caught in a web of betrayal. Her voice trembled. "My mother. I can't leave her here." Victor nodded instantly. "She won't stay. I've arranged the best facility in the state. 24-hour neurological care, music therapy, everything she needs. Your debts are paid, and your nursing school tuition is covered if you choose to return. This isn't a job, Sophia. It's an apology."
Nain Sophia's breath caught, the offer a lifeline she'd never dared imagine. Victor's face held no trace of the cold billionaire, only a father desperate for his son. She kissed Anna's forehead. "I'll be back, Mama," she whispered, then turned to Victor. "Let's see our boy." The drive back was silent, the city's lights a blur. Ethan sat in the living room at the penthouse with Elena, his head bowed, lost in the vast space. Sophia's voice broke the quiet. "Ethan?" His head snapped up, eyes widening with joy. A cry escaped him, pure and unbridled, as he rocked in his wheelchair, hands flapping. He typed with newfound speed the words "Sophia, home," glowing on his screen. Sophia knelt, pulling him into a hug, his arms wrapping around her with surprising strength, his face buried in her shoulder as it had been in the diner. Victor watched, tears blurring his vision. This was wealth's true purpose, not power, but redemption, a chance to right his wrong. Sophia stayed, her presence transforming the penthouse. She finished her nursing degree and became a pediatric therapist specializing in non-verbal children. Her methods were rooted in the compassion she'd shown Ethan. Together, she and Victor founded the Isabella and Ethan Harrington Foundation, funding sensory therapies for children like Ethan, ensuring her lessons reached thousands. The penthouse, once a fortress of solitude, became a home, filled with Ethan's laughter and Sophia's mariachi tunes. Victor learned to read to his son, hold him, and see beyond his condition. Sophia's strength, forged in her barrio's struggles,
taught them that kindness was a currency without limit, bridging wealth and class divides. Their story wasn't just about a billionaire and a waitress. It was about recognizing our shared heart, where love and trust could heal even the deepest wounds, leaving a legacy that outshone any fortune.